With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin. With the town's contract with CMAS due to expire and a looming rate hike should we renew, the Renewable Energy Commission has been working on different methods of solid waste disposal. Last night, the Renewable Energy Commission met to continue its discussion. Before the discussion began, however, Energy Coordinator Richard Elrick gave an update on the town's plans to work with the Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative to install solar panels in town.
With respect to the Cape and Vineyard Electric Co-op update, as you know, the bids were, the RFP was sent out. The vendors have toured many of the different towns' municipal sites, and within the next week or so, they will have essentially sent in a series of questions regarding the RFP and regarding the sites, and then CVEC will have responded. And then after that, they've got several more weeks, and then they submit the proposals, and we begin to go through the proposals and try to settle on the vendor or vendors. There may be more than one vendor because we've got ground-mounted as well as roof-mounted systems to install, and some aren't going to be economically viable for some of maybe the larger companies, and some of the more locally based companies might choose to bid on, or at least be subcontracted to do the work on the rooftop project. So that's what we're hoping.
Elrick also updated the commission with a list of pros and cons of pay-as-you-throw, another solid waste disposal alternative being discussed by the commission. The town of Sandwich has a new and successful pay-as-you-throw program.
The benefits for pay-as-you-throw, the equity fairness argument's kind of almost irrefutable, really. The idea that you should be, the cost for disposing of your waste should be based on the amount of waste you want to dispose of. So that's sort of the fairness issue. The other benefit, of course, another benefit advantage is it increases recycling, composting, and waste reduction of the environment. In so many ways, you've got an incentive to reduce your solid waste, and so you do that by increasing your recycling, and so that's pretty clear. Improved environmental quality by diverting waste from disposal pay-as-you-throw programs, extend the life of landfills, decrease air pollution from trash incinerators, reduce the need for new disposal facilities. With more reuse, recycling, and composting, natural and finite natural resources are preserved. Economy and cost savings. Every ton recycled saves the town in reduced tipping, shipping, and processing fees. By reducing waste, communities often find their overall municipal solid waste management costs decline as well. With the waste tipping fee going up in 2015, increasing recycling and reducing trash is one sure way to reduce costs for the town and its residents. Another advantage of just going with pay-as-you-throw is that it requires sort of the least amount of substantive change to the current system. They'd still use the transfer station. They'd still deposit their trash there, but they'd have to pay based on how much that they do deposit. And I think an advantage, and one I think we should really push when we get out talking to residents about this, is that it gives people an opportunity to control their waste disposal costs. The more you recycle, the less you're going to have to pay for your waste. And then very quickly, some of the disadvantages, resistance to change. People are going to perhaps perceive it as a second tax, and they're going to not like the inconvenience of having to purchase the bags and just be alert to it. It is going to require a bit of a change for some people who are presently not doing a good job with their recycling. So that'll be a little bit of an issue. Logistics, pay-as-you-throw will require setting up a system to sell bags to residents, and of course that is done by a number of different stores in the community that are contracted with to sell the bags. And it's a little bit of a challenge with the startup. Falmouth saw that they had a bit of a problem at first because they didn't have enough bags, so there's a lot that would go into getting it started and setting it up. A bit of a concern for sure about the impact on low-income large households, and we might want to recommend some methodology, some way of accounting for that, and perhaps providing some kind of subsidy. A small potential for increase in illegal dumping, just sort of in theory, that as pay-as-you-throw is being considered, some of the waste managers expressed concerns that there might be illegal dumping, but at least from what we're finding in Massachusetts in the pay-as-you-throw communities, as well as in Sandwich, though they just started, is they haven't seen an increase in illegal dumping. Higher administrative costs. With any new program, additional staff time may be needed for planning and startup. However, those costs are generally recovered in the long run through savings associated with increased recycling and reduced waste disposal. And also, you're going to have more transfer station use, very likely, because with the tipping costs, the private contractors, with the tipping costs going up, the private contractors are going to begin to charge more, and it's going to look to be, a lot more cost-effective for residents to utilize the transfer station as opposed to the private haulers. So, it's hard to tell to what degree there'd be an impact. Some people really like the convenience of it, and that'll go into our whole discussion about curbside or utilizing the transfer station.
Finally, the Commission continued to discuss curbside pickup. Elwick presented the Commission with a report compiled in 2003 by the Department of Public Works and its Director, Mark Ells. Here he reviews a portion of that report.
But as you go through it just very quickly, you can see that some of the other things they did there was to survey 16 other Massachusetts communities that had a similar population as ours. As well, they surveyed some of the Cape towns just to see what they were doing. And maybe at the end of page 3, it's worth a quick read, comparison of Cape towns and off-Cape communities. The contrast in methods of collection and financing of residential solid waste disposal services are evident in the survey. Cape communities use a combination of residential stickers and privately contracted services to collect and dispose of residential solid waste, with the majority of the towns imposing user fees or a combination of user fee general funds to finance the activity. The off-Cape communities use a town collection service or a contracted commercial hauler in 93% of the cases, with general funding for 70% of the financing. And it was interesting to note that the town of Falmouth was the only off-Cape community to offer residential stickers and private commercial hauling service as a means of residential collection. So, and I'm not sure that standard has changed much. We've got a little bit of a change here on the Cape now, particularly with Falmouth going to pay-as-you-throw, but...
Sandwich, you mean?
Sandwich, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, because Falmouth, are they still discussing it, right?
Yep. And then finally, again, you can see how they compare the, on page 5 and 6, how the different scenarios are played out based on the projections that they make. And then finally on page 7, you can see the recommendations that were made at that time.
They talk about dividing the town up.
They do, and it's
well.
Interesting, and I think, again, it serves as a somewhat of a standard for us to reflect upon.
Yeah.
So these are the goals and recommendations, I should say. Number 1, contracted curbside collection program. Contract for 1 year. Number 3, close the residential transfer station. Number 4, establish 3 sectors. The Hyannis-Centerville sector, the Osterville, Cotuit, Marston's Mills sector, and the Barnstable West Hyannis sector. Oh, I'm sorry, the Barnstable West Barnstable sector. The sector is divided by population density to enhance economies of scale for the collection services. One of the concerns they had in this part of the discussion had to do with the fact that, and why you would maybe, the RFPs are going to have to be a little bit different because it costs much less to pick up trash, obviously in a very densely populated area. So it's going to be cheaper to pick up trash in Hyannis and Centerville than it will be in West Barnstable and Barnstable. So that's going to have to be factored in, if a 3-sector methodology were used.
The Commission is working to narrow down the alternatives for solid waste disposal. The plan is also an effort to boost recycling in town. With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.